to Planting Joy Garden. I wanted just to share with you my fall garden. So, um, this planter is leafy. I do have some Swiss chard, which was planted earlier. I also have buttercrunch, and this was actually planted on September 13th. It is now September 26th. I am gardening in zone 5. So these plants have 10 days worth of growth on them. And the thing with fall gardening, is you have the perfect weather, but the days are getting shorter. So, darkness starts to fall a lot sooner. It starts getting dark around 7 as opposed to 9 p.m. And so you have to take that in account when you are planting. I also have some rocket arugula, which was planted at the same time, and it's coming up nicely. I have it planted really densely. My plan is to eat it as a young leaf, and as I eat it, I'm also thinning it. So I roughly have maybe 20 to 25 days left before my first frost, but I do expect to get a harvest. I have my hoops in place in case I have to put frost covering over this bed. I also have some early globe radishes, and they can handle a little bit of chill as long as it's not getting snow or frost. So I do have frost covers. And this is my most exciting part of the garden. This is my wonderful chard tower. So I have been dining off of this green stalk all summer. I have Swiss chard planted in some of the empty pockets where I've actually eaten the chard away. So I'm doing like the cut and come again, where I take the outer leaves and leave the middle leaves to continue to grow. So in the empty pockets, I have planted, this is pak choy, and it's beautiful. I have another one that's not so great here. I had leaf miners, and I thought I actually smashed the larva in the leaves, but I guess I didn't get it all. So it's a little chewed up. I'm leaving it in place. If an insect should happen to get into my netting, they know exactly where to go and will leave the rest alone. I've also planted a few butter crunch lettuces. That's what's here, and I want these to get to full size. I also have frost covering for this leaf stalk. Let's see, I did plant some spinach, and spinach can be very hard to germinate in warm weather. So it's starting to cool, and I'm starting to get some germination of my spinach. And as you know, spinach, pak choy, Swiss chard, they are edible and delicious at all stages of growth. So I'm just going to spin this around, and you can see I have plenty of Swiss chard here in my fall garden. Okay, I still have one cherry tomato that is hanging on. It's ripening. I'm just trying to get a few of these last little trusts to ripen up. The season is pretty much over. We're getting maybe 70s during the morning, high noon, and about 50 at night. But as you can see, I do still have a lot of fruit on here. So I'm gonna just ripen off this fruit. Um, so I don't want to pull the plant just as of yet. I have a few little marigolds hanging on. I have my oregano, and this one is actually flowering. Oh, I'm sorry, this is my chocolate mint. Oh, getting confused. Well, I do not want mint to flower because I do not want it to be all over the yard. So I have been aggressively harvesting my spices here. So this is the Italian oregano, and I've kind of like sheared the top off. The basil, although it has flowered, basil is pretty delicious. So prior to the first frost, I will cut these down about an inch from the ground, and I'll heap on a pile of leaves. The sage, I have been aggressively harvesting this. Same thing, I will cut it down prior to the frost. and just harvest off the rest of the leaves. I have my parsley. Parsley loves this temperature, so it is really bushing out. Onions, they also love the temperature. I have been aggressively harvesting the onions, but they keep producing. So prior to a heavy snowfall or right during a snowfall, I will come and shear these down to the ground and provide a heavy leaf covering. Okay, so the strawberries, I will not put my strawberries to bed until I actually see snow. And you have to be careful with strawberries. If you interfere with their growth and their access to sunlight prematurely, you can actually kill your strawberries. So I prefer to have the snow actually hit them, and then they know to go to sleep. And once snow actually falls on the strawberries, I will put a heavy leaf covering over them. I do have one summer squash that's hanging on here. This variety is highly productive. It's been growing for about 30 days, and this variety of summer squash is 41 days from seed to harvest, and that's the absolute truth here in my zone 5. So these are just 30 days old, and they're producing fruit. There's flowers, so I hope to get a nice little squash harvest. As you can see, my perennial flowers are dying back. My hostas have bloomed and they are going off to sleep. Yes, the last of my hostas, the leaves are actually turning colors because I'm actually losing leaves. It is truly fall in my zone 5. And so I will spin you around. And this is my yard, heavy leaf coverage. And I'm starting to get a few leaves that have turned color and are actually falling to the ground, just like this. So it's truly fall in zone 5. I also added a bed. So this is a new bed for me. I have not filled it with soil at this point. So right now I just put my grow bags because I need to harvest out these potatoes and they're getting close. I am hoping to beat first frost. And in my zone 5, first frost is usually around October 15th. That's our historical first frost date. This year, with El Nino and all the weather changing patterns, I might make it to November 1st. But as I mentioned, I do have frost coverings for the green stalk, which I'm actually growing chard. And I have frost coverings for this bed where I'm growing leafy vegetables and radishes. So I do have this one in a raised bed, but they are in their bags so that I can pick them up and put them in more protected areas. If the frost comes a little bit sooner, the potatoes absolutely will not make it through frost. These are my last hanger-ons, so I had some red Norlands here. And red Norlands, for me, they size up nicely around 70 to 75 days. Yukon Golds are in these, and they usually size up real nicely for me in around 75, 80 days. So they'll just barely make it to frost. Potatoes also, if they're small, they are fully edible. So I don't have to have them gigantic. I just want them to be some nice looking potatoes. Okay. The other thing I have growing is some bok choy, baby bok choy and pot choy. I did have some leaf damage on these, but they can be eaten at any stage. They are really packed in here. I'm glad I did not wait for it to truly cool down. So I planted these where it was a little warm, but in this area it is shaded. They only get 2 hours of sunlight a day. So that has helped to keep them cool. They're surrounded by other plants and shaded on all sides. So it has helped them not to go to seed or to flower out or to bolt. I also still have some perennial flowers here. These are my sedums. They are going to flower. And this is what's left, the remnants of my flower garden and my ferns. They have truly pooped out. So this is what my fall garden looks like. I will bring you along when it's time to put my beds to sleep so that you can see how I prepare for winter in Zone 5. But I'm excited to have added an extra raised bed. At this time, I'm planning for next year. And some things I have figured out work really well. It's easy to water for me when everything is here. And in the fall, when you really don't want to come outside because of chill or, snow flurries, this will be easy to hand water. I generally will turn off my outdoor water spigot, so I will need to hand water with my watering pail just because frost and snow can pop up out of nowhere in my Zone 5. And so I'm just really pleased how things are laid out here for the fall. So everything is easy to access. It's right outside the door. Watering is really easy if I have to water by hand without hoses. I'm so excited that I'm still growing at the end of September. I'm excited with all the leafy growth I have going on at this time of year. I'm excited about my layout, and it really worked for me for watering. And one other thing worked for me really, really well. The other thing that worked really well was my resting area. So I can actually come out in the garden and relax. And my little storage bench, I had all the things I need. So I had supports, I have a sitting stool, I have handy tools, some pads for my knees. So I'm just excited with this gardening year. I feel like I've learned a lot. I've truly experienced joy this summer in the garden, and I have been able to extend that joy into the fall. So thank you for joining me as I plant joy in the garden. And if you're in Zone 5, I wish you the best of growth until the first frost. Thank you.